The Office for the Protection of Children and Youth in the Archdiocese of Chicago is set up as one part of the church's response to the terrible tragedy, the crime, the sin of the sexual abuse of minors by clerics and some others in the church. I'd like to see every victim made free, and also have people know what our programs are all about. There's the story about investigating and cooperation with the civil authorities. There's a story about prevention. But the most touching and important story are those stories the victims tell themselves. I'd like people to know that there is a place for them to come where they'll be listened to and respected.
I was sexually abused as a child by our Catholic priest at the time. He was a very dear friend of my parents, and so they felt any time I spent with him would be quality time spent in a mentoring relationship. That abuse lasted for 4 years. I held all that inside of me, fearing my parents. They were devout Catholics, and I couldn't imagine having their son question the character of this Catholic priest who was held up high, in high regard in our community. And so I held it all inside. I didn't want to tell my wife. I was afraid of what that would do to our relationship. I was afraid if she might think differently of me as a man or as a husband, as a provider. I didn't know, and I didn't want to introduce such a sick and disturbed story into my marriage. But of course, my wife did not respond in any of those ways. She responded to me with outrageous compassion and love and understanding. And that moment was then and continues to be my primary act of recovery, telling my wife my story of childhood abuse. Telling my parents was one of the most difficult things that I've ever had to do. We cried and cried and cried on the phone until we couldn't cry anymore. I never thought as a 12-year-old boy telling any official of the church that this abuse occurred by a Catholic priest, but now as a 48-year-old man, I thought, I know I'm going to be scared, but I'm going to do it. In the back of my mind, I thought, were they still going to deny the abuse occurred or question my character? I didn't know. It was August 24th, 2006. That's a date that will live on in my brain forever because it was the day I confronted the Archdiocese of Chicago and told them my story of abuse and how that abuse affected me and how that abuse affected my family. I'm happy I did it. I'm very proud of myself. It was exhausting. It was emotionally, draining. But that day was another great day of healing in my life and in the life of my family. It's not over. When you've kind of gone through counseling and we talked to the Archdiocese officials, it's not over. So I wrote a letter to Cardinal George. His office responded to me, as he does to all victims of clergy abuse, by offering if I would like to see him. And I said, yes, I would like to see him. And so through that meeting, the idea of the Healing Garden was created. It is colorful and warm and inviting. It is a wonderful place in the heart of the city of Chicago to reflect, to breathe, to pray, to be informed and inspired about healing from abuse in our church. And it's a wonderful place to be.
I would say 500,000 people have probably been touched by this office now. So we have given, I think, language to victims, to parents, to children. to report abuse, to talk about abuse, to educate their children. There are 5 areas that we cover. The Office of Assistance Ministry provides outreach to victims and to their families, and those persons would be coming forward with allegations of the sexual abuse as a minor. The Office of Investigation and Review will take the case, will listen to the victim, will also listen to the person being accused, and then that's investigated. Our goal there is to provide justice to both parties. The next area we cover is an area of prevention, education, training, and that's the Safe Environment Office. We train adults, we train children on how to recognize abuse, how to give children skills to prevent them from being abused, and we also do mandated reporter training on a consistent basis. The next area that we take care of is monitoring those priests who are still members of the priesthood who have been removed from public ministry. The last area is what I would call the compliance area, and it would be background checks, they would be monitoring the Safe Environment Training database, the codes of conduct, that database. So we have a large computer-based system that tracks that everyone has done what they're supposed to do. If credibility is to be restored in this church, people have to believe in it again. And so we have to be transparent. We have to move forward and not let this happen, as the Cardinal says, not on my watch. We don't want it to happen again. Not here, not now.
The Office for Child Abuse Investigations and Review is the office at the Archdiocese of Chicago that receives all reports of the sexual abuse of children, minors, anyone under the age of 18, by priests, deacons, lay employees, and volunteers of the Archdiocese of Chicago. There was a victim who sent me an email, probably about a month and a half, 2 months ago, and he shared some initial information about he was sexually abused as a child by a priest in a parish, and he gave me all the specific information. And he lives out of state and had said that he really wanted to meet with us. So he could not come here. He asked if we could go to him. In less than 7 days, we went out and we met with him. And he made connections. He was able to make connections as to why this was the time for him to come forward. And he had told us he had never spoken to anyone. This is why we're here. I hear a lot from people that they say, as soon as our meeting is over and they formalize their allegation or they tell their story, a lot of people say, I feel like there's a weight that's been lifted. That doesn't mean it's perfect. No one knows how someone's healing process is going to be, but I still make sure that they are aware of, if they don't know already, about assistance ministry, because even if someone doesn't want to meet with me, the offer for outreach and support from assistance ministry is always there. I grew up Catholic. I grew up in this church, and I understand that we're not perfect. The church is not perfect, but the fact that Bernadine and now Cardinal George, that they so believe in this work, and that I can maybe help someone get to a point in their lives and to help in their healing process, that's what's most rewarding to me.
The Office of Assistance Ministry provides various outreach services as well as concrete therapeutic services to individuals who have come forward to report that they have been abused as a child. And they kept that pain, they kept that secret just for years and years. I mean, we're talking about people coming in their 40s and 50s and 60s.
Sometimes it can be as simple as providing them a forum where they can sit down together and start saying, we've lived with secrets our whole life. Now it's time to unravel these secrets and start talking. The Archdiocese pays for all of the counseling sessions. They pay for it, whether it's inpatient, outpatient, family, whatever it is. And it's important to note that the therapist is selected by the victim or will assist them to find their own therapist, but it's completely independent of this office. That's a priority. They can get the help to kind of move through this and get to the other side. The other side doesn't mean it's done, it's over with. This is a process.
And healing process for one individual may mean something different for another. But we're here. We want to provide those outreach services to you. We want to let you know that we are here to really listen in a compassionate manner and to make sure that you, as a child of God, receive the respect that you deserve.
My job is to oversee what we call here the program of parent penance, and what that program is it's for the priests who've been removed for at least one substantiated allegation of sexual misconduct with a minor. And so it's not to be confused with all the priests who have been removed for sexual misconduct, because some have been laicized. My program is only for the men who have remained priests. And so it involves monitoring them, supervising them, providing appropriate clinical services, and ongoing risk management to ensure that they are safe to be in the community. For all of the men in my program, it's a condition to remaining a priest. So it ultimately comes down to, if you want to remain a priest, this is what you have to do. There are some men who have chosen not to participate when they've seen their protocol or their safety plan. There are some men who tried it and just weren't successful. And some just decide that's not how they want to live the rest of their life. But the ones who have remained are the ones who have said that they're committed to living this life.
How many of you have children? How many of you are parents?
There is a heightened awareness about child sexual abuse and how to prevent it.
And what is the training about? It's to educate you.
The adults that we train are both clergy, religious, lay, anybody that works with children, or if you are an employee, you are an adult that is employed by the church, and therefore you have to take the Protecting God's Children training, which teaches about what abuse is, what are these warning signs, and how to report these warning signs.
As far as how common is it, I don't think we have any idea.
They also give you a background about perpetrators and what they are thinking and what they may be thinking about having access to children and how to report that.
Hear our cries as we agonize over the harm done to our brothers and sisters.
Now, we're not trying to make people paranoid with this training. We're trying to make them vigilant. The training also occurs with our children and young people in our religious ed programs, in our schools, in our youth ministry programs. They have every right to expect people, anybody, to respect their bodies, to know that if it doesn't feel good to them, if it doesn't feel comfortable, if it doesn't feel right to them, that they can report to a trusted adult.
We have some ongoing calls, kind of consistent calls, regarding mandated reporting. And they're coming from the schools. Every single day, we have an opportunity to respond to a situation in a school or in a parish or through an outside consultant coming in that basically impacts the lives of children. Due to the increase in calls, do we need to do something? Do we need to go back and reinforce training? Do we need to meet with school personnel?
Because not every school, not every parish is going to have the same resources or the same commitment from their staff, their faculty, or their parent body. So it's really a need out there.
But what they're looking for is, one, I think some reassurance that they're on the right track, and two, how to think beyond that. How do you address the issue with the father, the mother, or with the child?
And with the changes in technology. And so we're going to have to address that. We have really had the opportunity to take a leadership role, not only in the church, but here in the community as well. We have worked with the Child Advocacy Center. We work with the Department of Children and Family Services. I have worked with the Department of Jewish Children and Family Services, along with other entities and agencies. And we've been given the opportunity to do that. We've learned a lot, and we've shared a lot.
Things have changed in a way, but now I think a lot of the work can be into prevention.
When the bishops passed the charter, every diocese was to have victim assistance and was to have safe environment. Our cardinal went beyond that, as you can tell. He took this as a call to action. I'm proud of that. And the fact that we have gone beyond just clerical sexual abuse also is testimony to keeping children safe and to our commitment to doing that.
I became aware that I had two sons who had been sexually abused in the late 80s and early 90s by the pastor of our church, who was something of a family friend and I thought a friend to my boys. I didn't need to know the details of it. It was horrific enough trying to deal with the fact that it had happened. And yes, I had horrendous guilt. I should have known. At least that's what I thought. This never should have happened to my boys for 1,000 different reasons, but it did, and life goes on. Today, I think they're doing well. My youngest son, rather, addressed it early on, and I think he is the better for it. My older son just kept saying, I'm fine, and later on down the road, it caused a lot of personal problems for him that he's still working out. I have had people say to me any number of times, I can't believe you still go to church. Or, why would you still go to church? And God didn't do this to my kids. Someone who was evil and took advantage of their position of authority and trust that people put in them did it, but God didn't do that. And I'm very pleased with the fact that my boys are still very active in their Catholic religion. And I know that there's still a lot of people out there, a lot of victims out there. And I would just say, if you have an opportunity, go and report it and get the help that you need. It's not your fault, something I heard my boys tell me. I feel so guilty. I'm so embarrassed. It wasn't their fault, they were just kids. That yes, there is help out there and your life will be better for it. You don't have to fight your demons by yourself. And again, I'm not sure I will ever say I have no guilt. But am I better than I was 15 years ago in dealing with it? Absolutely. Absolutely. Are my boys better? Absolutely. And yes, I'm very grateful for what the church has offered all of us.
Please come forward if you know of someone who has been abused, or if you've been abused yourself. You will be listened to. We will try to help you become the free person that you should be. And God bless you as you continue your journey of life.